The first time I saw Mauro Benício in person, he smiled like a god, like a man who knew the laws weren't real, just ornaments poor people pretended mattered. He shook my hand with both of his, called me a whistleblower with potential. He thought I didn't recognize him, thought the new name, dyed hair, and ESG consultant badge meant I was just another expat opportunist. But I remembered every syllable of the deposition he gave the day I lost everything. My real name? Ivy Santoro. I was Chief Regulatory Officer for a pharmaceutical finance joint venture in London. Our job was to manage compliance between research funding and experimental treatments, making sure we didn't break ethics codes when pushing biotech into new markets. Then one day, Mauro walked in with a smile and a suitcase, and a spreadsheet with 3,019 names. Trial participants from slums in Rio, favelas in Recife, shelters in Caracas, all dosed with experimental mood stabilizers and early-stage gene boosters. None had consented fully. Many were now in debt, because that was Mauro's genius. If the drug works, we get approval. If it fails, we sell their unpaid medical debt to offshore banks. I objected, formally, wrote a risk report. 6 days later, someone leaked emails that made it look like I'd tipped insider stock info to a cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in years. The FSA launched an inquiry. I lost my job, my license, my apartment, and every recruiter in biotech stopped calling. 2 years later, I was Mara Silva, an ESG auditor hired by a shell firm to assess Taurix Biolytics' expansion compliance. The CEO? Mauro Benício. Same teeth, same charm, same trail of buried lives. But this time, Panama was where the rot lived. Taurix Biolytics listed 2 subsidiaries in the Canal Zone, both technically compliance and R&D logistics consultancies. But really, they were shell companies funneling trial debt portfolios into high-risk medical asset funds. These weren't just unpaid bills. They were human futures. Charts labeled DP class, debt patient class. Each row had a code: DP13, terminal, DP7, incomplete trial, DP2, dosage non-compliance. Translated, people who couldn't finish the drug regimen, often because they died, were marked as financial nulls and sold as negative yield derivatives. And the buyer? Bank LSR, a rogue syndicate laundering experimental medical debt through emerging illness modeling funds. The real kicker? Bank LSR paid insurance premiums to Taurix in case claimants recovered. Recovery was seen as a risk. That's when I struck. Under my alias, Mara Silva, I used my access credentials to reclassify all Taurix offshore intake from trial collateral to beneficial disbursement. The effect? It made every payment look like a direct embezzlement payout to Mauro Benício personally. And the system wouldn't catch it, because the spreadsheets matched the existing payment tags. Except now, when regulators or banks reviewed the trail, his name showed up as the sole financial actor. Then came the ally. Encrypted email. No subject, just this. He buried 72 in Nairobi. Ask about Site 9. Attached was a clearance token from Singapore Blue, an ethics watchdog that operated inside the Singapore Monetary Authority's dark leak platform. I had a friend on the inside. I didn't know who, but I knew what I had now. Proof Mauro's death debt scheme had spanned continents. I loaded the Site 9 data, and it broke me. Women, children, injected with nutraceutical immunity accelerants. No follow-up, just debt files. Sold, then buried. I stared at the names for an hour. One of them, Sophia Almeida. She'd applied for an intern role on my old team. She never made it out of the trial. That night, I rewired the Taurix annual live stream infrastructure. A corporate bragfest held in Singapore in 2 weeks. Mauro would be the keynote, and he'd speak in front of his investors, his banks, his insurers. But this time, his slides would show his payouts. His voice would trigger a live display of rerouted compliance data. And the banks would see their own money in his hands. 3 days before the Singapore summit, I triggered the first audit cascade. The system flagged account class N85, the one Mauro used to store overflow trial debt from Nigeria and Sri Lanka, and assigned it as a personal holding trust. Just a label. But labels are everything in financial compliance. With one change, I made him look like he was converting trial losses into private income. I watched the internal logs. The panic set in immediately. Mauro's CFO emailed him. "Boss, the N85 funds are showing beneficiary signature under your ID. Did you authorize that structure?" He replied, "Never touched N85 directly. It's under compliance ghost tags." But the tags were gone. I erased them. They'd been ghost tags, anonymized compliance markers I used to build when I actually worked for the company that Mauro took from me. Now, those markers had been reassigned, all pointing straight to his public-facing Cayman profile. He didn't just look dirty, he looked caught. And the Singapore bankers? They noticed. One flagged the transaction chain, forwarded it to Bank LSR's compliance team. Subject line: "Why is your insured asset funnel also paying Mauro's personal shell?" I got an alert from my ally. No name, just, "They're watching. You have one shot left. Make it loud." So I built the final payload, a live slide deck for the summit keynote, already cached in Toric's cloud infrastructure. Mauro would load it from the stage. It would look like his usual stats: charts, projections, maps. But when he clicked the global impact summary, the screen would flip. The names would scroll. The accounts would show, in real time, a breakdown of every patient, every debt sold record, every off-the-books payout, with Mauro's digital signature stamped beside each one. And behind it, footage of the sites, of the trial deaths, with compliance metadata. And worst of all, a running ticker at the bottom: beneficiary signature ID M. Benício, U.S. Borough. Net liquidation proceeds, 213 million, 200 million, siphoned through suffering. And now it would all come back. In the language of banks: liability, fraud, imminent exposure. The Singapore International Ethics Summit was luxury pretending to be morality. Held in the crystalline rotunda of the Conrad Sky Tower, every table was plated in brushed titanium. Every attendee wore gilt like designer cologne. I slipped in with the ESG consultant delegation. Badge scanned, eyes forward. My name wasn't on any registry, but my fingerprints were already inside every fiber optic line in that room. Mauro took the stage. Same navy blue suit, same false warmth. He opened with, "Our mission has always been human-centered growth." Cue trigger. The global impact summary auto-launched early. He clicked, confused. The slide flickered, then changed. Black screen, white letters, scrolling text. Toric's patient, trial classifications, DP13 to DP1. Debt resale partners, Bank LSR, Lomo Group, Zanda Financial. Beneficiary signature, ID, M. Benício, U.S. Borough. Asset class, medical debt, derivatives, undisclosed trial deaths. Mauro froze. The screen behind him glowed brighter. Now came the footage. A trial camp in Sierra Leone. A list of dead patients, under age 15. Audio from a compliance memo. Their names won't be recorded. Asset class converts on expiration. His own voice. Mauro's hand reached toward the clicker. It wouldn't respond. Because Jin, yes, him again, had rewritten the system to ignore physical input once the payload launched. Jin had never stopped helping people like me. The bankers reacted first, not with outrage, with evacuation. 2 men from Bank LSR stood up mid-sentence and left. One tapped his phone, whispered, "Freeze transfers now." Another turned to a woman in a red suit and said, "Get the lawyers. We're under investigation if this is real." Mauro finally spoke. This is a hack. It's sabotage. But now, The livestream feed was mirroring the data onto Toric's own site. Every investor, every compliance officer, every silent partner now saw what the trial debt really was: a blood-stained spreadsheet, with his signature on the bottom of every page. I stood, didn't speak, just held up one item: my original employee badge from the company Mauro had poisoned. Security didn't stop me. They didn't know what I was doing. But the room, they knew exactly who I was. Mauro didn't leave the stage. He staggered off it. 2 handlers met him behind the curtain, but the cameras didn't cut, because the feed wasn't under his control anymore. It was being mirrored through Singapore Blue's emergency ethics line, an open-source channel that broadcast urgent corporate fraud to regulatory partners across Asia, the EU, and North America. And every one of them was watching. The data cascade continued. Each slide, that had once been filled with buzzwords and earnings, was now filled with dead patient names, fake compliance clearance stamps, proof of posthumous debt trading. And then came the auto-translation rollouts. In Portuguese, it said recovery benefit. In Swahili, it said gift drug. In English, it said experimental asset. The final slide hit like a hammer. Estimated global trial-linked deaths: 11,829 net profits converted to private holdings. MB, 213 million, primary broker ID, Tarek's internal, direct CEO Ayuth. That's when Bank LSR filed suit. Mid-conference. It was live tweeted. They accused Mauro of breach of contract, willful concealment, reputational harm, and violating 4 clauses of their synthetic bond package. It wasn't justice. It was predator eating predator. But I didn't need justice. I needed destruction. A woman in a dark suit walked over to me. "Miss Santoro?" I nodded. She handed me a thumb drive. Backup. Distributed archive. Zurich, Lagos, Sao Paulo. Can't be buried. She was from Singapore Blue. She gave me a look. Soft, precise. You did more than speak. You made the math scream. I walked out of the Sky Tower. Didn't look back. Took the badge from my blazer and dropped it in the fountain out front. Let it sink. Let Mara Silva disappear with it. The news cycle spun fast. Torex Biolytics lost 70% of its value in 4 days. Board members resigned en masse. Interpol requested Mauro for questioning. He fled to a private treatment sabbatical in Corsica. No one expected him to come back. And me? I took a small apartment in Lisbon. Started a consultancy for medical whistleblowers. No brand name, no logo, just a whisper chain. If they buried your truth in numbers, Ivy Santoro knows how to dig. I had a backdoor, because in his greed, Mauro had digitized his empire, and I'd learned how to make digital ghosts.